Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video, a second look at this chunk from B'yond EDC. If you haven't seen my video, I did cover this in a prior video. It was more of an unboxing, a first impressions video, just getting this in my hands for the first time. But well, today, as you can see, this thing's been pretty well used. I have had this in my pocket now for weeks on end, like almost 2 months straight. And for somebody who's a knife reviewer, that is very surprising. But that just speaks to the overall impressions I have of this knife, how much I like it. And one thing that I can definitely tell you, when you get it in your hands, you just want to use it. This is in the asymmetrical line, so it's not the low tier, it's not the high tier, it's right in the middle. Just a fantastic design, designed by Dirk Pinkerton, of who I am a big fan. Dirk's designs always striking the utility purpose, the sort of self-defense purpose, just good hard use blades. This here I have absolutely put to the paces. Now, I have not been nice to this knife at all. In fact, I've intentionally tried to use it hard, not abuse it, but use it hard. That is one thing I need to say. This just makes you want to use it. So I do have a ton of use footage. I'm rolling in some of the best here today so you can take a look at it in good use. Again, the chunk, just a nice blade, S35 VN steel, titanium, beautifully done, still fantastic action. I mean, the action on this is just awesome, and this is so dirty. By the end of this video, I'm gonna have to sort of take this apart and clean it up, as you can see, and I've showed you it is a mess. But that was by design, and with that, let's get into the use footage. And so again, as you can see here, the asymmetrical chunk. This is designed by Dirk Pinkerton, just a nice hunk of S35 VN steel. The first thing, this just makes me want to use it, and it screamed out to me for the kitchen application. This is a full flat grind from the secondary bevel all the way to the top of the spine. The top of the spine just being rounded out nicely, and the handle good and thin, really just begging to be used in the kitchen. So here you can see, getting down to business, some good quality use in the kitchen. The nice thing is, being S35 VN, this is going to clean up extremely nice. And then again, being that full flat grind, it's going to slice like crazy. So between the blade thickness, the overall geometry, the height of the blade, and the just stainless nature of the S35 VN, this screams food prep in my opinion. So here you can see, getting down to some good quality use. Absolutely loving the way this is cutting, making quick work of all my vegetables. Just really nice. And the other thing about this knife that's interesting, the blade depth really works for some alternate uses. So here you can see, scooping out some coconut oil here, getting it into the frying pan, getting my food into the pan, and just generally speaking, working extremely well for the cooking purposes. This B'yond EDC chunk, a fantastic blade, and especially for the cooking application. Now, I do have to say, I really enjoy cooking with my knives. That is one thing that I've come to greatly enjoy. And the fact of the matter is, the chunk is a wonderful knife for that application. Now, I'm going to say this a few times in this video. If there is one thing that I would really love to see, not just the chunk as a folding knife, but as a fixed blade option. But here you can see the folding knife did a nice job. Continuing on with some food prep, just really nice, clean cuts. That's what I have to say about this chunk. Really nice, refined edge, easily controlled, and doing a wonderful job for the chopping tasks. The chunk is very comfortable and has a real nice grind, super sharp out of the box, and at this point just doing a fantastic job. Even on some things that are a little bit softer, you can see, like on this cheese, doing a nice job slicing down and through. A blade that doesn't have quite as nice of an edge geometry can definitely struggle with this type of task, but the chunk doing a wonderful job. It's not the knife's fault the cheese is a little bit sticky, but again, just doing a fantastic job and performing extremely well. Now you can see here, going through the chicken with ease, really easy, barely applying any pressure, super easy, and just making quick work out of this. Nice and controlled. Again, the full flat grind doing a wonderful job. The secondary bevel, super sharp. And the fact of the matter is, well, when it's all said and done, just a really nice kitchen knife. For a folder, and I gotta say, I'll definitely give it to the chunk. And cleanup is a breeze. The S35 VN steel, no worries about stains, no worries about patina or rust. And the fact of the matter is it just cleans up really, really nice. So again, the chunk, absolutely awesome. So now what about getting into some EDC tasks? This is where all the gunk and grime adds up on my blades. Some basic tasks, cutting cardboard, breaking down packaging. This knife has endless use. Now, my impression of this for the EDC tasks, it's not going to be the easiest for two reasons. One, because the overall shape of the blade. Bottom line is, it's a very deep blade for a pocket knife. This knife is fairly large overall, I'd say sort of mid-size to large size, so the blade definitely has some depth. It's not the most pointy. I mean, yes, of course there's a pronounced tip, but at the same time, it's not in alignment with the center of the handle. It's more sort of towards the top. This is a very subtle drop point design. It's not really a spear point, certainly, not like a Tonto or anything like that. So it's a little more difficult to find the tip, get it into the little crevices in the box, and really get to work. But at the same time, the fact of the matter that the knife is a full flat grind definitely weighs in on the slicing capability. So here you can see, after a few days, and this is over the course of a lot of work, getting into all the packaging, breaking down boxes, cutting tons of tape, and really you can see using some alternate methods, twisting the knife and sort of popping open the boxes, no problem. And what about some other tasks? A little bit harder, getting into some rope. This is where I'm really starting to test the edge. Now, if I wasn't careful, you could see, and not really paying attention to my cuts, it would slide just a little bit. But if I was a little more exact and really paying closer attention to my cuts, focusing on the exact blade angle and really trying, you can see super clean right and through the rope, no problem. This rope's pretty thick too. It's used for lobster traps and it can be tough. So here you can see the chunk making good work, getting right through the rope and no problem at all. A nice full handle. It's really fairly simple, all things considered. Now this is where I definitely started to struggle. Doing some push cuts down on the surface, the only reason why I struggled is because the handle hurt. There is an area up by the blade where when you're gripping and pressing, it does really hurt, and that limited my ability to push down and really use the force that I needed to get down and through the rope. The edge was sharp enough, it would certainly cut, but unfortunately for me, it just hurt my hand to the point where I really didn't want to bear down all that hard, and it meant I had to use some alternate grips. It was definitely not ideal. One thing that I would like to see on this knife is an alternate design without the flipper tab. If they're going to remain with the folding design, I would definitely suggest a full-length back spacer to help span things out so it doesn't hurt. And you can see here, where this necks down and gets a little bit thin, it leaves some marks on my hands. It definitely hurts. So leaving hot spots, and that really, again, limited my ability to push down with confidence and really get down and through the rope for the push cuts down on the working surface. But again, the edge, nice and refined, definitely sharp, and after doing a little bit of work, it will cut through the rope for sure. Now again, the chunk makes me really want to use it. That was one of the first things I was like, this thing's just begging for some field use and to get out in the wilderness. So here you can see getting through some bark, no problem, using it really to process down some firewood and get myself to the point where I was able to make a fire. Now getting on some carving, doing some whittling, the edge is so refined, this takes some real serious chunks, and the fact of the matter is with that full length handle, doing a nice job. In this grip, I found that the pocket clip never even got in the way, doesn't create any hot spots, and doesn't bother me at all. If you watch my first video, you'll see that one of my comments was that the pocket clip looked awkwardly small and a little disproportionate, but after using the knife at length, I can say the pocket clip is awesome. No interference in the hands, no hot spot, no bother, and the clip is very functional and works extremely well. So for carving, very good. Now here you can see getting into some finer tasks, trying to get down some feathers. Again, the full flat grind is going to be a very nice and slicey blade. And even on the woodscraft tasks and the fire prep, you can see doing a wonderful job. So using the chunk here to carve some nice fine feathers, planing down through the wood with ease. The blade edge geometry is awesome, just gliding right down and through the wood. And the nice thing is, after all this work, all these tasks, going through the rope, going through the wood, doing some hard carving, and all of that, well, now at this point, I can check the edge, see how it's held up, and just after use and use and use, again, a knife that's just begging to be used, now I can take this chunk, get it cleaned up, and really look at how it held up after all this time. And so there you have it, a bunch of good, hard field use with this chunk. Dirk's designs are always fantastic and really intended for utility and self-defense purposes, and then a lot of times they cross over perfectly for the EDC or even that firecraft and woodscraft use. So this chunk really falls into that class. Now, my final sort of impressions of the folder. First and foremost, this overall size, just about perfect. The handle, fantastic. The blade, awesome. A lot of things about this are great, but what I would really suggest, and now granted, this sort of area through here doubles as a finger guard, I get that, but at the same time, it's already a big enough knife that I think there's enough finger guard there. I think you can index well enough that if you got rid of that flipper tab and you really only leveraged the thumb studs, and again, getting rid of that flipper tab means that on the top of the spine, you can actually get your spacer a little closer. This area right here really hurts my hands when I'm using it hard. And again, this knife begs to use it hard. So this area right here, you can see the scales thin down, and that I believe is to buy the space you need for that flipper tab. But if you didn't have that flipper tab, and you were able to just use the thumb studs and then get your back spacer all the way up, at that point, you could keep that thicker. It would be much more comfortable in your hand for those hard use tasks, and it wouldn't leave the marks and it wouldn't leave the hot spots. And this is not overly thick, so it would really help with the hard use ergonomics, in my opinion. Now next, if you watch my channel, you know I'm the hard use fixed blade type of guy. This would be an awesome, awesome, awesome fixed blade design. I would probably add 3/4 of an inch to an inch for a fixed blade version. Palm swell, but pretty much the same geometry. This would just be awesome. And the way they did the spine, just rounded over and just feels so good. You don't necessarily have to strike a ferro rod and scrape everything. That's kind of a prerequisite for me, but I love the way this feels in the hands. Just really, really nice. So generally speaking, I love the knife. Look at the action is still no problem. So feels good, comfortable in the hand, awesome blade, definitely like it. Let's roll in one last thing for a quick comparison. I had one of my viewers who was commenting on my first video mention the fact that, you know, Dirk did have a departure from his typical style with this, and well, another blade that if we've looked at it in the past, well, here, this is the Artisan Proponent. Definitely also a little bit of a departure from his sort of traditional style. So every now and then, Dirk coming out with these sort of out-of-the-box designs, which is awesome. This is a little more reminiscent of many of his other designs, but the handle is just wild. And he has these big, knobby thumb studs. So similar in a way, a little more flush here now on the chunk, but similar in a way, just really, really cool. So next for me, well, I got to clean this up. So let's get this thing disassembled, clean it up, and see how it held up after all that use. Little alcohol, hopefully will clean up some of the gunk, soften it up a bit. That's a ton of sticky residue. I have not cleaned this at all, with exception of after my food prep. So at this point, oh yeah, look at that. I mean, coming right off. That's the nice thing about S35. and especially with this sort of blade shape and geometry, it's just going to clean up real easy without too much fanfare. I mean, the finish on this still looking really good, and even after hard use, you can see it's going to be nice. So I'm just going to take a quick minute here again, sort of clean this up. Now, something that definitely needs to be pointed out is how awesome these screws are. As you notice, they're slotted. So you could use a flathead screwdriver, but for me, I'd rather not do that. Flathead screwdrivers could be prone to causing damage. Now, you also have the ability to go with a hex head. So here you can see this hex head. This says H3, which fits in here absolutely perfect. No wiggle, no slop, just a good, perfect fit. But if you look even closer, you can also go with a star bit. So inside that, it's either a T8 or a T9. Now this is a T8 and it looks a little sloppy for me. I feel like it might be a T9, which is an odd size. This seems a little tighter to me. That seems about right. That's close, but I don't trust it. I am going to use this hex head here to remove these studs, get this pulled apart, and I am hoping this is all I really need to do. So coming apart here easily, this is something I enjoy. If you've been watching my channel, you probably realize I am in the knife service business. So I rely heavily on my ability to take knives apart, and this is coming apart so easy and just awesome. Look how beefy these screws are. So nice. So just those two screws, and this comes right apart with ease. Look at the size of these screws. So nice. Very well done. I can't tell. These might be titanium as well. Super nicely machined. Just awesome. Taking a quick look inside, you can see this is fully skeletonized titanium handle scales and just so grimy. I mean, I really need to clean this up. You can see there was some nice grease on the pivot assembly there. Then you can see down here, you do have a removable and replaceable lock stop. So inside there, your stop, that's awesome. Reasonable size stop pin, not overly sized, just big enough for this knife. Coming apart easily, again, you can see that's so dirty, so grimy, just really needs a lot of cleaning up. But you could see how nice this still ran, all things considered. No problem, no issues with the deployment. You can kind of see the area where your detent travels along the blade there. Your caged bearings just needing to be cleaned up at this point. Dirty, dirty, dirty. And as we pop out your pivot screw, looking a little closer, you can see it is D-shaped, which is going to help because that will index into the frame, which again, if you look at the clip side here, you can see that D shape. So that's going to help you with assembly and disassembly so that your pivot screw does not spin while you try to get it put together. And the bonus there is, well, you can see they did not need to use any Loctite, any glue, anything to keep this put together. The D shape of the pivot assembly and the D shape cut into the titanium, doing a wonderful job to help with assembly and disassembly. Very nicely done. You can tell these guys know exactly what they're doing. Now just one last detail, you notice the back spacer here does have some pins, so that's what kind of holds it into place into the frame. So just gotta be careful when you take this apart. Those are small pins and they're easily lost. But again, nicely done. So now nicely cleaned up, everything's going to fit back together just so nice. I am again very, very impressed at this knife. The manufacturing is fantastic, really nice machining, wonderful design, just very nicely done. This here is absolutely fantastic. So between Dirk and the people at B'yond EDC, again, I am just more than impressed. Everything about this knife just screams quality. I love it. The design is fantastic. And just a really, really cool blade. Fitting together easily. This will be the test. See if we can get these screws in here without any issues. And I would say should be definitely by the way this feels. Again, everything popping together. Super easy. That D shape working in my advantage right now. Everything threading together very smooth. You can see just really nice threads. Now there is one thing that I did not note, and I just need to be a little bit careful. If you take a look here, you end up with a long and short on the female side and a long and short on the male side. So just gotta take a quick second, figure out which way these go in, and then I'll be done. So I put both the long male and female side sort of on the flipper tab end, and then on the pommel end you can see the shorter of the two. Now at this point I believe this is fit together just about perfect. The interesting thing is they're so tight in their tolerances, you can actually see inside the sort of clip side, you can see inside the female screw head to the male stud there. You can see it right on the inside, and same with this side. So very precise on these screw lengths. At this point, the centering back to just about perfect, and the action, buttery smooth. Drop shut, no problem. No blade play at all. Feeling really good. So this is back in action. Now I've not yet touched up the edge at all. Let's see how it held up. A little bit of drag in there, not a big deal. I'd say it's actually pretty suitable. A little bit of drag, a couple little snags, but and it's pretty much just right through here. In fact, I can feel that. When you go to do the nail nick test, sharp right there, starting to slide, right there, sliding right there. Still really sharp right through here, but everything else just rounded out a tiny bit. Getting on the strop should be pretty straightforward. Just going to strop this a couple times just to get this sort of straightened out just a touch. Should be just about enough for this. Couple passes, and then got a little bite back into that blade. Ooh, yep. Nail nick. Better. Not perfect, but better. Not bad. Again, maybe a little bit of a snag there, but all things considered, for all that use, very serviceable. Could I put this on some sort of a stone if I really wanted to? Sure. I don't think it needs it. Good quality, serviceable steel, beautiful blade, fantastic design. At this point, cleaned up wonderfully. The other thing that I would like to add, this is such a nice titanium, flat, open, wide, blank canvas for anybody who would like to try anodizing. I don't know if I am going to do that. I would love to. It's just a matter of time and figuring it out and all that stuff. But I think this would be an awesome knife and an awesome platform for anodizing. I think that would be fun. It would be really a unique project to make this your own. But overall, the chunk, the asymmetric line from B'yond EDC, Dirk Pinkerton design, awesome. So again, I'd like to say thank you very much to the people at B'yond EDC for providing this full review. And Dirk, great design, man. Final thoughts, wrapping it up, make this in a fixed blade. I would love it. And if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel is growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there, so if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.